Welcome, Xceinie, to our second Peanut Butter Jelly Wars podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Another day to talk about Peanut Butter Jelly Wars, the thing that lives in my head rent free. So,
Same.
yeah, hey, I'm glad. That makes two of. I was kidding. Actually, whoever, like two of us and our and other people. No, hopefully you guys enjoyed the last podcast. We're going to continue talking about uh, how this gameplay strategies and whatnot, just to give people an idea of what are the best strategies, what's the best way to play, and we're still going to try to keep it somewhat beginner friendly. So we thought it'd be interesting to talk about resources in Peanut Butter Jelly Wars. And there'll probably be a video linked in the description from a YouTuber named Spiral Biscuit. He makes some StarCraft videos. It's like a video he made a while back. And this kind of was inspired from that video is the resources we have in the game. And so in StarCraft, you gather minerals and gas. So you think those are the only two resources really. But in reality, there's actually way more than that. So yeah, anyway, so you can watch that video if you want, or and you can listen to us talk about it here. So I came up with 9 potential resources. We're not going to talk about all of them, but I yeah. So should I just tell you what the list is in no particular order?
How about I tell you what resources I thought of, and then you can tell me if they overlapped with the ones you think are most important.
Okay, cool. Let's do that then.
Cool. So, the resources I thought of were time, real estate, and then just kind of like maybe choke points slash spacing, which could overlap with real
Mm.
estate.
Yeah, that one's kind of
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
Spawner related stuff, like the actual like spawners can provide
Soup?
the resource actual units. Yes, soup. Oh yeah, that's right. Soup, and then not even just soup, but flies could also be a resource.
Flies the
I don't know how
specific
many
troop
people.
or just troops in general?
Yes, flies the specific troop because of
Oh,
what they give the queen.
Mo, say that one more time.
Because of what they give the queen. The queen uses the flies as a resource.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, the queen's not in the current menu, but okay, I'll. That's interesting. I'll add this to a potential like the fly. Yeah, I guess certain, and I guess like in some cases, gnome explosions could be a resource in the gnome cup, bringing down the price of your gnome lord. Right? So boom
Oh yeah, that's a
attacks.
good point.
Yeah, and there's also like some other units that we haven't played around with. Like there was a, it's in the code of the game, but it's not playable in the game right now. That is the honeypot, which each honeypot lowers the price of of a of your bug units by 1%. So that was like another thing. But and also I guess like I don't. Did you ever play when the hive mind was in the game?
I played when the hive mind was in the game, but I never used it. I played. That was when Honeycup season one was happening, so that's when I played, and I think
Yeah.
some people might have used it, but I can't remember. I definitely did not.
Yeah, the hive mind was a very niche pick. But anyway, continue on with your list.
That might be most of it. Let me just think here. Yeah, so real estate, time, the units, specifically the fly, then as almost like half of a resource, and just like almost like advantageous locations. Like different stages have different sizes and different choke points. So if you're able to access those choke points and just hold them well, that could almost be its own resource because it gives you a lot more space. It's almost like another half resource, you know.
That's a good
So
point.
that's what I got.
Like the like one of those spots that comes to mind to me is in the desolation, the space level, is the 12, 3, 9, and 6 o'clock positions on the map. We place down those like those are very key locations to control. Uh, Also, like there's the I didn't even think about this when I was making my list, but there's the bank space in the middle of Ulrich's domain, the Halloween level. So I didn't even think about that either. So sure, I'll just give a quick
I didn't even
rundown.
mention money.
Yeah, because like the first thing that came in my mind was piggy banks, right? And then I also have building net worth as one. And building net worth is something that's often overlooked, but like you can sell your buildings at any time in the game. So you're building the more. This is actually one. So it's very interesting because very early on in the competitive tournaments, people would trash on cannons, saying cannons are bad. And honestly, like troops are really good because they move on their own. But but you can sell your buildings. You can sell cannons, so you actually can get your money back when you summon a troop. There's no getting your money back. So building net worth is an important one. Then I have troop. I have unit slot because you only have 5 slots for the unit. I also have this one's very niche, but unit slot placement, where you place it, because like you have to like scroll back and forth, so where you put it could be important. And then the last one, I don't know what to call this, but I call it captain micro, meaning like your captain can only be at one place at one time. So do you remember when we had the trick or treat bags and I reskinned them to the ice cream sundae at one point? Do you remember those units?
Oh yeah, I love those. I was trying to make a meta within those.
Yeah, because like you're talking about these might be the best, I was like saying, well, you might not be able to sell them fast enough because you have to use up your micro to be selling it when you could be doing something else. So that's like the interesting thing is like you can't be doing more than one thing at a time. So that's kind of what makes that interesting. Anyway, so I figured I would give the my top 5 of those, so we can just talk more into detail about each one. And you can tell me, Will, should we start with number 5 and go up to the number 1, or should we go number 1 to number 5? I don't know. We're kind of making this up on the fly.
Let's do number 5, number 1, just for
Okay.
dramatic effect.
I actually think this might be like less. It'll probably get less climactic as we go along. It'll probably be more anticlimactic at the end, but it's okay. So guess what my number 5 is? I guess we'll do.
I'll say, maybe the soup.
The soup. Yeah, that's actually what I had. I had the soup as number 5. And
So I can read your mind.
yeah, you can read my mind. And so yeah, so I don't know. What are your thoughts on soup? And for those who don't know, we haven't even explained what soup is. Soup stands for spawner unit production. So like the more spawners you have, they constantly spawn units. So the more spawners you have, the more soup you have. Anyway, I just wanted to explain that real quick. Now, yeah, what do you think about soup, Xceinie?
I think soup's really important. I think it's definitely got to be at least in the middle, if not upper half of the top 9 from what you
Oh
listed.
yeah,
It's something that can outweigh money production if you get it going. I feel like even at kind of terminal money output or the really high, like extremely high money output, you have the 100 piggy banks or whatever. If you have substantially more soup than your opponent has substantially more soup than you, even with 100 piggy banks, you can become very easily overwhelmed.
yes,
So I think it's very flexible, depends on the situation, depends on the space, but has a huge potential for taking over a match.
yes. This is kind of a somewhat. This might be somewhat of a spoiler for what's up higher on my list, but what soup does, they're kind of like spawners are kind of like piggy banks if you think about it, but they also buy you Captain Micro of resource, which I don't know if there's a better name for thing Captain Micro for the resource. I couldn't think of a better name, but the thing is that you could be spawning units from the other side of the map while you're not there, and that's really valuable. The downside is you're locked to spawning that unit. And currently, in the main menu, you can only spawn flies, ants, and splares. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the reason why I put it at number 5 is I don't think you need soup to win. But if the game is going on longer than 3 or 4 minutes, then you probably want soup. And I know you're a very like I
Yeah.
feel like most of your strategies involve soup.
Um, it involves soup, but I'd say that another resource might overtake soup in terms of priority
Yeah, that makes
for
sense.
sure. So I do almost always want soup, except for maybe King's Kitchen. I don't really need
Oh yeah.
all the time soup there. But probably in every other stage. I'm trying to think if there's another stage, say like 90% yes for soup for me.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't pick soup, if you don't pick any like spawners, you're running the risk of the game going on super long and you're gonna lose and you're gonna because I remember going against Juice a couple times and he would just put like spam hives all over and he just slowly whittled me down and there's nothing I could do about it. I figured I could like beat him with just like splares and UFOs with no spawners, but it was just too much for me. And it's because I had to constantly spend my money to summon the splares to take out the hives. But the thing is, the flies never stopped coming, so it was just a constant. I had to spend more money than I would have otherwise. So it was a very good investment for him in that match. But anyway, what do you think my number 4 one is? And honestly, these aren't like I kind of came up with these about an hour ago. So for those listening, this is not the gospel truth. This is just my initial gut feeling.
I would say I'll say the variety of, or not variety, the order which you lay out your 5 units when you do the match. I forgot what you called that, but the placement
Yes.
of, say, the fly, hive, and like ant, honey cannon, UFO, or whatever, the organization of those, so you can switch back and forth very quickly. I don't know for sure. I feel like maybe that one might be a little lower. I'm just gonna guess that's your number 4 though.
Yeah, because like you notice when we play, I'm very particular about the order. That's why you'll see me like not pick any units for a long time, and I'll pick 5 of them like really fast back to back. But you were actually half right. I just had unit slot in general. I actually think unit slot's more important than the placement. Placement, I don't know, maybe placement will get more important as things go on, but just to keep it simple for newer viewers, I don't think you should be thinking too. If you're new to the game, you shouldn't be thinking too long and hard about your placement. Um, More just about what your coverage is for your 5 units because all of the units in the game are actually pretty like have a purpose. They're all good. They all have their own niche. However, you can't pick all of them, so you have to pick 5. And that makes you end up picking some there could be a unit that's like for example, the roar beetle. I think the roar beetle is really good, but for me personally, I just never see myself picking it because I always feel like I need to pick something else to cover a weakness. And the roar beetle's never there to cover any of my weaknesses. It's more of like a if I'm picking the roar beetle, I'm building everything around the roar beetle. It's not really a good support unit in my opinion. But maybe you disagree with that. But anyway, yeah, what do you think about the unit slots and the strategy of that?
I agree. I almost I almost thought of that too, but I thought I would say that's a pretty solid spot for it. I would maybe, I don't know. I think that's like a good 4 is a good spot for it. I was gonna say maybe switch it with the soup, but I actually think it might be. Yeah, I think it's more important
Yeah, I was
because
gonna put it below the soup at one point, but I thought about it like soup is kind of reliant on your unit slot pick because like these are the units you pick. Because if you don't even pick a spawner, you have 0 soup, right? So you can soup's not even a thing you think about if you don't have a spawner. So that's why I put it above. I was like, oh, that makes. And I feel like when you're going really high levels, like for example, whenever I go against you, I feel like if I don't pick the UFO, I'm always going to lose the long game against you. But when I go against Cable 19, I feel like I'm doomed if I don't pick the ant because he's really good with the Splair rush, and yeah, like Answered is so good against Splair. So like I feel like just picking certain units for certain things is really good. That's also why I always like picking second, because I'd rather just react to what my opponent's doing.
I need to work on that. I also need to work on the organization of the menu units, like the placement of each slot too, because that's something I feel like could strengthen my game a bit.
Yeah, because what I like to do is sometimes I'll put the salt cannon at the last spot, because let's say if I'm selling all my buildings and I'm placing down piggy banks, if someone tries to rush me, I just have to hit L once, and now I have the salt cannon selected, and then I hit R once, and then whatever unit I pick first, I usually try to pick like a unit like a fly, or maybe a fly, but like more like an ant or a splair, because in the early game when you're trying to get the real estate, you're like spamming cannons. Occasionally, I might want to switch to the ant or the splair to attack the opponent. So that only requires it to hit R once. And then the units I save for the end of the game, I put in the middle. And wherever I put the cupcake, I try to make sure that the left and right of it are units that benefit from the cupcake. That's the way I think. I don't know if anyone else does that though. I might be the only person who does that. So in the comments below, let us know if you've played any tournaments, if that's what you do. I don't know.
I mean, I personally don't think the cupcake matters as much for the placement, but that's just my personal take.
It doesn't.
A lot
yeah.
of time,
I mean,
I would. Oh, go ahead.
You can go.
Um, I would reserve the placement of the slots for more of the micro related things. And usually when I put a cupcake down, it's more of a macro thing. So, like micro is very time sensitive, like very, very sharp, quick reaction times,
Yeah.
and the macro not as much. And so the cupcake being more macro oriented, in my opinion, means I'll have like an extra seconds to get there if I need to. But it does make sense to just kind of for convenience, like have it next to the spawners or whatever.
Yeah. In most cases, it's not that important. That's why I didn't put the unit slot placement in the top 5. I don't know where it would rank, but I really don't think you should be worrying and thinking too long and hard about it. But I do think that if you get to a level high enough, even though it is like it's a macro thing, if you like doing it in the back, it's not a big deal. However, let's say if you're using let's say you're on the brink of being rushed and you need to get one UFO out really quick, and because they're rushing you, and that's UFO will save you. Sometimes you need to like do something like macro-y in a micro situation, which I don't know. That I think most people don't do that, but that's something I've always thought about.
We'll call it the Miacro.
The Miacro, yes. The Miacro, the true gamer. There's micro players, there's macro players, and then there's the Miacro. Yeah. Or maybe there should be like a cat captain, and he can be the representative of the meow cat. I don't know.
Anyways, you want to get to number 3 here?
Yeah, we'll get to number 3. I'll let you guess.
Piggy bank.
The piggy bank is not it. I did not put piggy bank as that. I actually put down real estate at this point. Real estate was my number 2 at one point, but I decided number 2 was more important. But see, the top 3 is interesting. The top 3, I think almost you could interchange them. Well, maybe 2 and 3 you could interchange, but I feel like the higher you go up on this ranking, the lower ones don't matter if you don't have this other thing down first. And so the real estate, I feel like is really important, but there's other things that it relies on. So like for me, real estate is just the number one mistake I see with new players. We talked about it in our previous podcast, how people turtle, they never go out and try to capture choke points. Because, real estate more real estate means more piggy banks. It means more spawners, which more spawners means more soup. And, more money means bigger army. And yeah, I don't so what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think real estate's a great one to put at 3. I think I personally, would have put it at 3. I was just going to kind of guess as a wild card, like, oh man, I bet bet you put the piggy banks at 3 just to throw people off or whatever, just because you had some angle that no one would have considered. But yeah, I agree that real estate probably deserves to be at 3. You could probably see if you see any of my matches on YouTube. I'll often put piggy banks all over the place, kind of the front and back and
Oh
everything, and
yeah.
really not use the real estate really well. But then as I played the game more, I certainly tried to put the piggy banks towards the back so I could have access to a lot more real estate, a lot more effective real estate.
I mean, I do think you do better with that. I think you've been better at not doing that lately. Uh, I think you were just really weren't you really like placed them out in the open more in the honey cup, but you still got second place, so that was still impressive. I will say like building the piggy bank. This is kind of off topic, but if you do build the piggy banks out in the open, it does technically save you time, I guess, because you don't have to go back and forth. But um, another thing that many players forget about is that you can press X on the Xbox controller to teleport back to your base. So that's
Yeah,
like,
it took me a while to get down.
yeah, once people like remember that, it's like, yeah, you can actually save a lot of time. But yeah, real estate, I think, is just like one of the, even though it's number 3, like it's like one of the most important things ever. Because even if you're like trying to rush your, like, what's so good about rushing is that you're kind of going into the real estate and like you just get, yeah, I don't know, if you can just lock like a popular it's not really a popular strategy, a strategy that I always like to do but I'd never really seen anyone else do is I try to do this what I call the lockdown strategy. It's actually probably not as popular. I have to stop saying that. It's not as used. You can't really use it in the current main menu because there's not too many like the lockdown strategy worked more with side crabs, sardines, and the old traditional gas cannon. So like these really long range units. What I would do is I try to lock them in and limit their real estate, and then try to maintain those points. And then I don't have to like kill them. I just have to like just make sure I have more space than them, and then I just build more piggy banks, and eventually I win. So and also like the gas can, so the garlic cannons, the garlic launcher, I should say, is really devastating if you have control of the real estate. But I guess also, I mean, because like you're the UFO master, but I feel like having good real estate control means that you can summon UFOs without any worries, right? So,
Yeah,
what do you thought? What are your
yeah, pretty
thoughts on
much.
that? I guess I'm saying kind of obvious things, but um,
Oh yeah, if you have the space, if you have a large perimeter where your opponent can't break through, yeah, got plenty of area to place the UFOs down, and that way, if you have a wider perimeter, the UFOs can come at you from different angles too. Even though it probably doesn't matter too much, because if you just put down 10 UFOs, they're gonna bully their way through the real estate regardless. But obviously, if it's a UFO versus UFO wall, having a wider perimeter to put the UFOs down in or along would be very advantageous. And for that reason, yeah, real estate is especially applicable to UFOs.
yeah, I think real estate. I feel like UFOs benefit the most from like good real estate control. In some, even though it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting because you don't need like crazy real estate. You only need enough to like maybe place down 8 to 10 ish eggs, really. But like you said, you can like place them in a spread and attack them from all directions. But like I know like one big critique for the UFOs is that they're just too hard to summon. But I think so. Like you can tell me, like, do you think the UFO? Maybe this is a different podcast idea, but and after we talk about this, we'll move to the second resource. But do you think UFOs are too OP?
No, because they provide an avenue to provide other units with buffs. So, the cuckoo squid and bumbler. That's why I was
Mm.
actually kind of bummed when the bumbler got nerfed a bit because it challenged the UFO. So I don't think they're too OP. I think that it provides a nice avenue to make some creative buffs.
Yeah, I don't think they're too OP in a sense that if you pick them, you always win, because you don't always win. They're not an automatic win if you pick them. They are. I do think they are kind of an automatic win if you and your opponent have both like equally reached the late game and you both have a lot of real estate. I do think the person with UFOs and who spams out the most UFOs will win. But in some ways, that's kind of by design because, and I think this is what keeps UFOs in check, is that to be good with the UFOs, you need to be a good player. You have to have control. It rewards good play. You have to prep in order to get to the UFO. And I think that's why it took us a while to see UFOs be popular and be very successful. Because at the beginning of the first tournaments, they were kind of successful here and there, but it was mostly what was really popular at the beginning were Psy Crabs and the spawners. But yeah, I think that's interesting. But I do think you can make an argument that maybe UFOs are a bit too centralizing in the late game now, because not even, I mean, in the current builds we have, not even garlic cannons can really challenge them. But maybe we haven't done enough experimentation with that.
I feel pretty strongly that there are a couple builds out there that could counter the mega UFO just kind of domination.
Yeah, and I want to try that. We need to play some more games. I want to test that out.
Yeah, I've got some ideas.
Yeah. Anyway, so and as I tell you, this list is going to get less. Is going to be more anticlimactic the higher we get up. So guess what my number 2 is?
Okay, now piggy banks.
It is not the piggy banks.
I put down the most anticlimactic resource. I guess.
Well, what do you think? Okay, what do you think my number 1 would have been then?
If the Captain Micro.
Okay, you got the right ones. Yeah, so I put down Captain Micro at number 2. So, spoiler alert: piggy banks are number 1. And I'm actually going to talk about piggy banks first because I think it's the most obvious and boring thing to talk about. But you literally can't do anything if you don't have piggy banks. You really can't do anything. Like if you only have 3 piggy banks, the only thing you can reliably spawn is bread, and you're not going to win with bread. And you need to at least build up to like 8 or 10 piggy banks to like consistently place cannons. So that's why I put piggy banks as number 1. It's the most important resource. It's the most obvious resource. And yeah, so but yeah, Captain Micro and Captain Micro is kind of connected with the time resource because you only have so much time what you can do with your captain. But yeah, the Captain Micro I think is an often over. Before I talk, do you have any thoughts on Captain Micro and what's the best way to use your micro and stuff like that?
I think the best way to use the micro is to know what stage you're on and know the quickest routes to the jar, and then also know where the choke points are, and use it to your advantage if you see your opponent that has a very awesome late game macro unit. So I remember I had a recent match with Juice. It was probably one of the last friendly ones. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I remember he had UFOs, and I'm like, I'm gonna go get in there and micro at the very beginning and not even let him use the UFOs.
Yeah.
So knowing when to use it, and knowing how to limit it so you don't overcommit, and then knowing third how you can get to the jar fastest, most effectively with choke points and distance.
Yes. No, yeah, because I remember what I was going to say earlier. The one reason why I decided to put micro so high is that we just did an ELO ranking of the top players, and we're going to talk about this in a later podcast. But the number 1 player right now is Cable 19, and he basically is the micro player. He doesn't really pick UFOs super often. His most commonly picked units is, and I'll have to verify this later, but is that Ant, Splair, and Bumbler. He doesn't even, sometimes he like probably picks the cupcake the least out of all the tournament winners we've ever had. And I think it just comes to show it's because he just can defeat the opponent before they can get established. But he's also not too extreme to where he's not a gimmick. He does play micro. He does pick UFOs sometimes, and I think his most popular picked spawner is the Hive, and so he can adapt, but he definitely leans more like rushing in your face and keeping pressure. But that's actually what's really that's why it's so powerful, is because, and micro doesn't even mean rushing either, because it also means what are you going to use with your time to, are you going to build a spawner, or are you going to build a piggy bank? And sometimes I don't know what the right answer is. You build a spawner first, you build a piggy bank. Sometimes it depends on what your opponent's doing. And I think this is like the most complicated resource because, and this is probably where most of the game comes into, and whoever has the best, makes the best use of their captain's time will win.
Well, the Alarc's domain, the center is a micro hub.
Yes. That's why I like it, like using, I always try to use the cuckoo squid to get in there and steal the bank. And yeah, although sometimes that doesn't work because you'll just spam a bunch of ants when I try to get in there. You've been catching on to that. But yeah, anyway, those are the top 5 resources we've had. Do you have any final thoughts, Xceinie?
I think it all makes sense. Yeah, the only thing I'd say about money being number one is everyone knows money is number one, so it's the obvious number one,
Yep.
but the money management isn't always more important than the, micro or real estate. Because you can manage money well, but then if you like botch your real estate or you have very terrible micro, the money
Yeah.
management uh might not matter as much, so that's my only thought on the money. So I would have probably put it at like 2 or 3, but I agree that at its base it's the most important, for sure, just to have the money.
Yeah, money management is an important thing you brought up because sometimes I'll see players, like this doesn't happen as much anymore, but I know early on people would, in the early game when they're like doing the scrappy, trying to get the choke points, they'll just spam a bunch of flies and they'll all die, and maybe they damaged the cannons a bit, and that's it. But the person built like 12 flies. Was that a good investment in their money? Probably not. They probably would have been better off building one splayer, and it probably would have done more damage. It would have
Or
been a
13
little
flies.
14. This is why I don't like flies. Flies suck. I'm just kidding. No, I can't say these things. I'm the creator, right? People think I'm biased. No,
You can't
actually,
say they suck because the queen is going to dominate again at one point.
that's true. That's true. And maybe that's probably what will be our next podcast. Maybe, maybe we'll talk about the queen and some other units. Stay in tune.
Yeah, sounds good.
Anyway, thanks for joining with us, and we'll see you next time.